Well, I mean, when you're in a position I'm in right now, I mean someone who's lost everything.
Right.
You just really have so little F's to give.
This is 15,000 homes. What I think is really important, and where I think that the design community can play a really important role, is making sure that what is being built back really supports what was lost and get to an outcome much better than they might have. Because that's what design does really well.
It's really going to take a coalition of community, design, manufacturing, distribution, and installation.
That should sink in with everybody. This isn't a time to make an extra buck. This is a time to do the best service and let these 15,000 homes go from a story of loss to a story of what lighting can do. Light for LA will be a set of targeted outreach programs which are all about providing assistance. It's helping explain how lighting can be a real tangible value in their life and in their community, explaining what the components of that value are, how to go about getting it, and then asking them what they want.
I will also say I'm constantly reminded that nothing's impossible.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Light Pod. If you haven't had the chance to watch an episode, this is one that you might want to consider watching. It's uploaded on Spotify. You can watch it. You can also watch it on YouTube. We're sitting on location, and the images will tell a story that I can't simply describe to you, because it will certainly help you understand the gravity of the situation that is here and how much work is ahead of it all. Welcome to the Light Pod, built by Light Eye, the #1 podcast for the people, process, and product of design, all with a little love for light along the way. I'm your host, Sam Corbel, and today we bring you a rather unique story, but something that's important, something that's impactful. And while we're sitting in Los Angeles, specifically in Altanita, the site of a recent mass destruction of homes due to a wildfire, this stuff happens all the time. And those who are less fortunate don't have an opportunity to necessarily be brought back into the fabric of the communities that they lived in with an equitable solution around lighting or good lighting, whether that's in their personal home or the community that they survive in.
Hey, real quick, I want to take a minute to acknowledge a group of manufacturers that not only support the rebuilding effort in LA, but have made this conversation directly possible. I'd like to thank Bartco Lighting, Prudential Lighting, Cooper Lighting, DMF, and Cerno. If you get the chance, reach out to them and let them know how much you appreciate what they're doing to support what's happening to rebuild LA better than ever before.
Today we're sitting with the co-founder of Light Equity, Nick Albert. Nick's one of 4 who had a mission-driven approach to giving lighting to everyone. What was important to him and his co-founders was understanding the impact of good lighting, and the knowingness that good lighting doesn't necessarily have to always be elite and expensive. It has to just be mindful and thoughtful. Nick is a 20-year veteran of the industry in Los Angeles, and I want to welcome him to this podcast to help tell the story, not only behind Light Equity, but what's going on within this community to make sure that LA is built back better than it's ever been built before. Nick, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
It's really nice to be here in what is oddly an incredibly quiet, oddly peaceful and serene circumstance. It's sunny, it's beautiful, it's Southern California, yet no one lives here anymore, and we can hear the sights and the sounds of what is already a cleanup that's begun from the fires that completely ravaged this area for nearly, I think, 5 days in January. Tell us a little bit more about, why we're sitting here. What's going on?
Where we're sitting today in Altadena is actually the family home of very good friends of ours who we've been very close with, personal friends in my family for 20 years now. And we've spent a lot of days here. We've spent a lot of happy times, barbecues, spending time near the pool, our kids playing together, playing the piano. Just a really warm and loving family and happy memories all around. And they unfortunately were part of the tens of thousands of people who lost literally everything in these fires, and they lost it very quickly. And I think as we look around and we see the physical remnants of this place, you mentioned it's peaceful and it's sort of serenely quiet. You can sort of go through and catalog the object loss, the building, the things, the furniture. But I think what's really striking about this is the loss of humanity, the loss of experience, the loss of memories, perhaps, that accompany a place like this. And as someone who's practiced lighting design for so long, I know that what we do more often than not is not to give people light fixtures in their space, not to put lights on their street, not to illuminate a pathway at that basic level, but we're giving them a certain experience of space. What I think is really important, and where I think that the design community can play a really important role, is making sure that what is being built back really supports what was lost. A tree in the woods in a wildfire will burn, but for many species of trees, that is the process to rejuvenation. That tree will grow back stronger as the tree that was always there. That tree will drop the seeds that perpetuate its very nature. Humans and the human mechanism, particularly in development, and we think about all of the forces that coalesce around building any kind of place, don't necessarily protect the innate characteristics of the thing the same way that nature might. As a lighting designer, what I think is really important is using this toolbox that I have, right? This set of resources that I've built over a career that's really focused on creating an experience of architecture and a human interaction with those spaces, and using that to try to rebuild the nature of what was lost, and to be the seeds of regrowing that tree and regrowing that community.
When you speak about that regrowth, there's an opportunity to, as you alluded to earlier with the tree, come back stronger, come back better. What is the vision and mission behind Light Equity?
We've been focused on a long time for this idea that there are unequitable outcomes in lighting. There are communities and folks that have access to really high quality lighting. Maybe it's in their house, maybe it's in their community, and there are folks who don't. And we started to try to unpack that and understand what the difference was there. And that's where we really spun those efforts into a nonprofit organization called Light Equity, with the goal of being able to provide tools for people to understand that difference. One of the things I'm struck with most frequently in this business is that without fail, whether I'm just telling somebody I just met at a bar that I'm a lighting designer, or even somebody that's hired me as a client, without fail, they'll say, light is everything. And nobody has a sentence after that. So nobody knows how to expand on that idea, but they recognize it at face value.
Yeah.
And I think that's what is so powerful. And so to me, the only difference between being able to say light is everything and have light be everything in your place is access and awareness and an advocate. And that's where Light Equity really sees its mission, as helping provide tools or resources or awareness to people in any situation who just want to understand more about the value of light. They want to assess the value proposition of light in their project or in their town, but they don't really have a way to access that power beyond that. That's our mission, is to provide that access and to provide that awareness. 15,000 people have lost their homes. Some 5,000 businesses have lost their income. Entire town centers and streets and churches and church communities and schools and gas stations and taquerias and coffee shops are gone. And all that exists is the remnant memory of the experiences that people had there. So from that idea that, lighting is the toolkit to create experience and to help build back those memories, we launched our first initiative, which is Light for LA. And Light for LA will be a set of targeted outreach programs, which are all about providing assistance, information, advocacy, and resources to homeowners, business owners, communities, the county and the city, neighborhood coalitions, to, again, access those lighting tools and access those design mechanisms which will help them rebuild the character of the place that they lost instead of just replacing the things that burned. If you are ever lucky enough to work on a home, you have the experience of creating a part of someone's family, and that's a special, precious thing. Even the worst submittal review or site walk or budget discussion can be tempered by thinking someone may have their first kid in this house, or somebody may grow old in this house, or somebody may mourn the loss of a loved one or welcome a new pet.
The opportunity for you to establish a initiative within Light Equity in what has now become Light for LA is something that you're solely focused on. What is the cornerstone for Light for LA?
There's really 4 categories within the Light Equity approach, and programs within those categories. They can be used by themselves, they can be mixed and matched, and in the case of Light for LA initiative, we're pulling from all 4 buckets. So one of those is access to information by way of standards. So one of the programs that we're really excited about is that we want to offer residential design guidelines backed by the IES, backed by best practices that help regular folks understand the ins and outs of lighting, right? So what we're talking about is shifting the mechanisms that allow those processes to happen. So in many cases, unless you have an architect who knows a lighting designer, you don't get access to that information. Or unless you have an architect who has studied some of that, and there's degrees to which you get access to that information. If a lighting designer would sit down with a floor plan and consider 100 variables, right? Or 100 parameters of that building. A design articulate homeowner and their contractor could sit down with a guide and still consider 30 of those variables and get to an outcome much better than they might have. And it's about the ease of that process. It's about the sort of access, again, to that information and sort of putting it in a digestible format.
Access to information, as you mentioned, is kind of that first component. What's number 2?
I think it's access to process and intervening in the process on behalf. This goes to things like community lighting standards. There will be a sense of urgency to tackle some of these things very quickly, and in that urgency, the opportunity to make good decisions will be missed. So one of the important first steps is getting an audience with the county commissioners, talking to the rebuilding coalitions, talking to the folks who are managing this process. If it's in a space where the main street has been razed by fire, let's take a beat before we come in and just replace the old street lighting like for like. Why don't we think about what would be more appropriate? Or why don't we take this opportunity to think about the technologies and if something better could be put in place, or if there's a better decision supportive of that community. That's real equity. Communities that have the benefit of really great public space lighting are communities that can advocate for themselves, or that advocated, or where someone advocates on their behalf, like a developer-led communities, or where there's a strong neighborhood coalition or some other sort of non-governmental or governmental or entity that values that, right? So in places where that doesn't exist, Altadena is an unincorporated part of Los Angeles County, and I don't know that they've ever had a lighting commission or a lighting master plan. So part of what we can do is provide the resourcing to help folks understand what that is, to engage with stakeholders, people in the community, and ask what they love and what they want, and maybe help them put some of those mechanisms in place to move forward in a better way. It's not to say that anything that was here was bad. And I think that's a really important distinction. This isn't flying in with our designer capes on and saying, if only you had pedestrian lighting, everything would be different, right? Like, it's not asserting our design excellence at the expense of what folks want. It's helping explain how lighting can be a real, tangible value in their life and in their community, explaining what the components of that value are, how to go about getting it, and then asking them what they want. And letting them paint for us a picture. Letting them tell us the stories of their life and the stories of their place, so that we can use our toolboxes to try to give that back to them.
As you know, we're here in Altanita right now, on the property of a home that was affected by the fire. His name is Nick Arnson, and he's actually just showed up to say hi to us. We're going to invite him to sit down and just share a couple thoughts. He has a pretty unique perspective and role in this community, both in understanding how it was affected and what it can do to rebuild.
Prior to and after the fire, our community was unique, was definitely opinionated, but above all was respectful to each other. Now I keep telling people my community needs community. And we're displaced, we're not next to each other, we don't have that at the moment. But we need to both commune with each other and we need to hold each other up. And that's going to keep happening, and I'm convinced of that.
Does it feel like that sense of community will be the arbiter of what happens?
I have no doubt. I mean, you're talking to an optimist. So I don't say that coming from a place where I think I'm delusional. I know my town. I know my residents. I was starting my third term, so, I've had enough interactions to know that this town won't let something be built that if it takes standing in front of bulldozers. I will also say I'm constantly reminded that nothing's impossible. And it's a beautiful place to be where you have that revelation. Because every time I run into something that feels overwhelming, I remember that it just starts with a simple step. And for me, again, it always starts with community. So the heart of your question is, is there concern that Altadena will be built back in a way that Altadenans don't want it to be built back? There's two answers to that. Absolutely, there's concern. And I'm totally sure it will be built back the way Altadenans want. Will the town as a whole be the way they want it to be? No, it never was. So if you want to stick your nose into your neighbor's yard or house or choices, go ahead and get upset. But what I want to assure is that they're going to be able to do what they want to do. And along those lines, I don't want anyone to leave Altadena that wants to stay. I don't fault anyone for leaving. But if they really want to stay, I'm just doing everything in my power to make sure they have immediate funding, immediate relief. And then it needs to go beyond that. It's, it's so complicated, but the two main things are I need to know I'm taken care of now and I can survive at the moment, but I also need to know why even just survive through the moment if years from now or months from now I'm going to find out I can't do what I want to do because I was underinsured or not insured, or because I was a renter, or because my community won't come back the way that I can picture it.
There are so many things on your list. To know that anybody of any expertise is helping with even one of those things is lift.
Well, I mean, when you're in a position I'm in right now, and I mean someone who's lost everything, you just really have so little F's to give that I have successfully avoided anybody who's going to try to dictate. So I'm not frustrated by that at all because I've so successfully maneuvered my way around them. So you mentioned that, and it's somewhat foreign to me. I'm like, no, everybody I've met was ready to help, was ready to listen, was ready to show how they cared. And it's been beautiful. And again, I don't think that comes from my optimistic side. I think that comes from I've had years and years of practice, both as a council member and as a parent, to maneuver how to figure out where my energy is best spent. And if I'm going to not listen to you, I don't know what you're capable of. So the only way for me to get that long list taken care of is to figure out a way to separate it and give it to other people.
A lot of people want to help, right?
Yeah.
But particularly in LA, it's the thing of the moment. It so often dictates where people's energies go, right? How can we stay the course?
Well, I have two main concerns. Keeping eyes on Altadena so that we continue getting some support and we can continue resources and we don't start dropping off and, they're fine. We've already gone through that, right? Are we going to something new? And then more importantly, my bigger concern is how do I keep my community together? Every leader from other fires who's reached out to me has pointed out that, look, here's what's going to happen and you can't control it and it's not your fault. The community will turn on itself. And it'll feel like you've got no consensus. So what you got to do is prepare for that and figure your way out of it, which is unique to your community. How does your community reconnect? How do they get beyond differences? So that's been one track I'm sticking to. The other track is that to keep us in, I don't want to say the spotlight, but because that won't happen. Spotlight's already gone away. But to keep us on people's minds and keep people concerned, we got to get creative. We have to answer when the property brothers call and go, do you want to take on a project and then air it? If cool lights are going to go up in an area that we always wanted to have, let's celebrate that. The main library opened today. Let's celebrate that. We're going to have years of really cool stories coming that won't appeal to all of them, but we've got to get a good PR team on it. You know what Altadena has is professionals. We have professional PR teams. JPL packed us with scientists throughout Altadena. We've got Disney Imagineering folks, like 53 of them, half of or more lost their homes, sitting up here going, what can we do? So we need to take advantage of the professionals sitting up here and go down all those different avenues, and one of them happens to be PR.
This is actually 15,000 opportunities for success.
And I'm talking about like the professionals and the celebrities and stuff. Let alone, you've got these people who are faceless and have incredible skills, who know tree arborists, who know where can we save trees, who know, and you've also got, when you talk about 15,000 potential successes, I've had I'm just going to call it 8 weeks again, because it's important that we're not at 2 months, 8 weeks out, and I feel like I've been given 40 puzzle pieces to a 1,000 piece puzzle, but I'm starting to be able to connect some of them. I am committed to have Altadena gain more than it lost. Right. And when you go back to the 15,000 possible scenarios, let's just embrace all of them and make this so much better. 3 days in, Maggie was just demanding to come back to the house because she couldn't imagine that it's really all gone. Yeah. And I, as a father, was like, that's the last thing you should do. You should not take your child up to this rubble, let alone I didn't want to see it. But she was right. We got here and the immensity hit us, and then we were able to move on. But not being near it and not knowing for sure it's all gone had you hold on to false hope. And you didn't lose hope, you lost the false hope. So once we did it, we stood right there and we were overcome, and we closed our eyes, and I said, imagine everything we loved about this house and that we can build back, and imagine every little nook of it and every curve of it that we loved. Now, imagine all the things that pissed us off. Imagine those doors we needed to replace, but we just didn't have the funds for it right now. Imagine the car that sat in the driveway that we've been meaning to get rid of for 5 years, and we couldn't find the title for because this guy walked up and wanted it. It's melted into the driveway now. Like, imagine everything we wanted to fix and what beautiful home we wanted this to be. And we already loved every inch of it and everything in it. We can have that. So let's go on the sites where you ordered stuff that you love and order them back. And let's imagine the things that we had. And I'm coming from a very privileged place of good insurance. So I've tried to extend that imagining to now imagine what we could do for our town.
Well, and I think that hope is what we can all build on. And I appreciate you sharing that story of what it was, what it meant, and what it could be. I think that it's a really important one to give that perspective to everybody that wants to help and everybody that wants to know a little bit more about it. So thank you.
Thank you.
It won't be structure for structure, bridge for bridge, light for light. And that's okay. But we can give them back the way they felt. Because that's what design does really well. And that's a really powerful tool. And I think if we can get the momentum and we can bring together the folks to talk about this, we have the opportunity to do a service for more people than you may get to touch in a lifetime.
You mentioned that impact of community. You mentioned that what once was can come back, and it's all about understanding and looking forward to making an impact in those lives. One member of your organization, Light Equity Site, and he was affected by the fires. I want to let him just share a little bit of his story. Sai, thanks for offering a little bit of color in terms of your own experience. I know that you're a co-founder at Light Equity. What's it like to sit in an environment like this, to see it, to process it? Where does your mind go? And
Well, I'm really glad that we could actually be here in one of the affected communities to have this discussion today. I think we're catching some of the background noise of debris removal and the beginning frameworks of reconstruction as we have this conversation. And that's a very good metaphor for where I'm at, where my family's at, where all of my neighbors that I speak with are at. We are every day trying to put our lives back together and get back to normalcy as much as possible. One of the unique quirks of my experience of everything that's happened in the last 8 weeks is the day before the fires, I had a meeting with the management of my company, and they were going through a major restructuring, and we agreed that it was time for me to leave the company. So the night before the fires, I was talking with my spouse and my dog about what that means for our future and what are the next steps. And I went to bed thinking about what are the next steps of my career. And this massive event occurred over the next week. And at the same time, I'm trying to look for for purpose. And we won't go too much into the role of my last job, but it was very much more focused on high profile, high impact, unique lighting. It was not lighting for the people. And one of the things that I was realizing the night of the 6th as I went to bed was that I would love to get back to more of light for the people. Light that is accessible to everybody. And then as we start unpacking all the little steps to recovery, one of the things that kept coming up in conversations with political officials and insurance officials and lawyers is like for like, like for like. And I just kept thinking about all of the lighting in my communities that was bad. And I was like, we can't replace this like for like. Absolutely not. So how can we set up the infrastructure to build back our community in a better and more resilient way? When we have this great opportunity to apply all the things that we know about how to do lighting correctly, but we haven't been able to because it's not, it wouldn't have been responsible or cost effective to just remove pre-installed lighting and apply this new stuff. We were waiting for the next rebuild cycle to hope to get it right. And now we have that opportunity. I feel like we've been really blessed that a lot of pieces have fallen into place very organically, but there's so many pieces, both for me personally and for the larger community, that are still falling into place that will have to come into alignment over the next 3 to 5 years to complete this recovery. And there'll probably be pieces still falling into place 10 years from now, but there's a lot for legal reasons, for insurance reasons, for just other infrastructural reasons, where we're going to be pushed to get as rebuilt as possible in 3 years.
Why is there that 3-year mark?
If you are a property owner and you have insurance, that is at 3 years, that's the end of when insurance is legally required to provide replacement housing for you. And it's the people who are least advantaged in the situation that are the most vulnerable. And again, in the small little way that I can personally express that with my talents is by getting involved in the rebuild effort to advocate for them to get correct lighting installed in their homes and their businesses. And so if we don't get involved, somebody else will provide that expedited budget responsible solution. But we have an opportunity to get involved where we can both improve the overall outcome while providing a service to, frankly, to stakeholders in the lighting industry that myself as a former specifier and like somebody who works in technology and manufacturing now thinks of as the antagonists.
When you think about that entire community and the chance to do it, what's your biggest hope and wish for it right now?
I just want data-connected light. And I mean that very sincerely. It's probably the most tangible thing that I can point to say, this is something that we know is needed in terms of building infrastructure and lighting infrastructure that is very hard to retrofit into a space or very expensive to provide into an existing space, but rather straightforward to integrate into new construction, as long as you provide the pathways for that to be delivered at scale, where the people that we're asking to deliver that and install it trust that there's design and engineering and maintaining support behind those recommendations, not a giant science experiment that then might blow up in somebody's face.
Is there anything you've learned over the last 8 weeks that you can encourage people who take the journey with us today to listen to this on how to be patient and effective when giving back and contributing to what we're doing?
Oh, that's a great question. I think the best thing I can say is believe that if you're moved to act and contribute, the outpouring of positive response that I've received in the last 8 weeks has really been inspiring to me. And if you step up to contribute your skills or your resources, you will definitely be in good company, both within our industry and within adjacent industries. You've heard from Nick, you'll hear from Nick a little bit more, but I'm just gonna underline the having thought about this a lot in the last 8 weeks, it's really gonna take a coalition of community, design, manufacturing, distribution, and installation. And so we're looking to get those 4 pillars together and aligned.
Nick, as I bring you back into the conversation, Sai just had an opportunity to share with us a little bit what he went through, what he experienced. We're unpacking what Light Equity will do for these communities and what it can do for any community forevermore. There's 4 things. We've covered 1 and 2. It's the information and it's the understanding behind it. What is number 3?
Another way that we're looking to make impact as an organization is not just thinking about the application of light in spaces, but actually thinking about the application of lighting as a field and as a career. And this is a big topic of conversation in our industry at large and something that I'm really excited about. One of the things that I hope this outreach can do also is communicate to folks that this is a career that exists. I would love for our Los Angeles community here to come together and offer an 18-month fellowship to 2 kids who lost their senior year in Altadena, 2 kids who lost their senior year in Palisades, that were design-oriented, that were thinking about architecture or something. They weren't sure how to channel that energy. Let's give them 18 months of learning from what is arguably one of the richest lighting design communities anywhere.
I think what is truly so freaking cool about Light Equity is it's not a new chapter, it's not a new book, like it's a whole new generation and way of looking at lighting. And there is a dream to rebuild these communities in an incredible city, like you just said, with all this talent. And it can go to New York City, and it can go to Denver and Chicago and Zurich and Paris and Madrid and Moscow and Singapore and Bangladesh. I mean, this concept of lighting growing past just, quote, the small, tiny, young industry you mentioned earlier, and is something that people really want to be involved in and turn into a career, is inspiring. And for that reason alone, I literally can't think of a better reason for anybody who's in the lighting community, design, manufacturer, rep, or distributor, not to get involved in what you guys are doing. I don't know what else screams, opportunity to grow more than 15,000 homes needing to be rebuilt, where they know they will be rebuilt, where there will be the resources to rebuild them, but at the same time they're going to struggle to get there. Which brings us to our 4th. What's your 4th column?
So the 4th way that Light for LA is really looking to make an impact here is in access to the means and methods of getting light into a space. So I think that any practitioner in lighting design will tell you that sometimes the most difficult part of lighting a project is taking it from the page to the building. To help people understand where these things come from, to help them understand what that process involves, how these light fixtures get from the page to their building, and to help them navigate that system to some degree. What's going to be really critical about this is that as a community, we have to make sure that there is space not only for highly technical spec grade fixtures from Germany, but also fixtures that you might get at a big box store, that you might get at a Home Depot, you might get at an IKEA, because you can still create beautiful, supportive, healthy, sustainable lighting from any one of those kits of parts, so long as you know how to get it into your house. I think one of the most challenging pieces to this all will be the speed at which it has to happen, the stress that's put on the construction industry to do these things quickly, and the number of decisions, particularly that uninitiated homeowners may have to make leading up to being able to sleep under their own roof again. There's a lot of opportunity for the value proposition to get skewed or just the discussion to get lost. So if we can help put people in touch with distribution channels or purchasing methods, if we can provide them with a list of suppliers that their contractor can go to get this equipment, if we can help them understand how to look at a package or a spec sheet or a label and understand if it's a decent quality thing or a poor quality thing, and we can start to demystify a little bit of that process, we put that power back in people's hands to do something and to get what they want and to have an impact. This isn't a time for competition. This is 15,000 homes. That should sink in with everybody. This isn't a time to make an extra buck. This is a time to do the best service and let these 15,000 homes go from a story of loss to a story of what lighting can do.
How do people start to get involved the minute they get to this point in the podcast?
The simplest answer is go to lightforla.org. Read the information that's there. It develops on a regular basis, but sign up. We've got a really simple form. Put in your email address, sign up what you think you might be interested in. We need partnerships with people in the industry, people industry adjacent, people who are community organizers, people that have a church group or a book club of folks that lost their homes that might want to talk about lead lights. We need money, donations, whether it's $5 or $50,000. We need volunteers, particularly from the lighting design community and people who are skilled at this. And we need to get the word out. If you lost your home, if you are having questions about this, talk to your town council, talk to your neighborhood organizer, talk to the redevelopment agency, ask them how they're interfacing with this effort and how all of the resources that we hope to put in place can be used in your neighborhood as well.
It'll be amazing to see all of this come to light in 3 to 5 years and probably 10 years too. Thanks so much, Nick.
Thank you.
Hey, it's Sam. Thanks again for listening to this episode of the Light Pod. In case you didn't know, this entire episode was actually also produced with a video attached to it. So make sure wherever you listen to this, you think about watching it next time. It's amazing the connection you'll have when you not only listen, but you watch the brilliant minds who join us to celebrate the people, the process, and the product behind design. Until the next episode, stay brilliant, be bold, and never let your inspiration go. I'll talk to you soon. See ya.